Hey everybody, my name is Ixie, and today I want to break down the beautiful, tense harmonies of Hide and Seek by Imogen Heap.
Where are we? What the hell?
There are a lot of interesting things about this song. The lyrics are particularly poetic and open-ended and really, really moving. And the vocoder aspect of this song, there's no drums, it's just vocal tracks with a vocoder that she's singing through, makes it kind of a unique landscape sonically. But in this original version, she is singing a melody and you can hear her voice without really a whole lot of effects, maybe a little bit of reverb and compression and stuff like that. But it doesn't sound robotic. It's the vocoder voices that are surrounding her melody that have that sound. There are lots of basically duplicates of her voice that are singing along with her at the same time. I've seen a recording of her performing it live with a keytar.
Spin me round again and wrap my eyes.
So she's got the harmonizer going through the keytar, and so she's playing the notes that she wants accompanying her melody on the keytar. But I don't know if that's how she did it initially. She probably has a lot of different methods. In fact, if you watch her Tiny Desk performance, it's a whole different take on the song. None of those things are particularly my wheelhouse, but what is my wheelhouse is figuring out why certain harmonies and note relationships and melodies are making us feel things. And I definitely feel things when I listen to this song. I've always felt things. The first time I heard it, I was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And there are a few moments in this song that always kind of make me feel like my heart stopped or I can't really catch my breath. This song is in a major key, using mostly major chords, even though it's actually kind of a bit of a bittersweet, sad-sounding song. It's beautiful, but it just feels like there's something tugging at you. And I've cried a lot of times listening to this song, and it doesn't sound happy. So it's a great example of how you can use a lot of major chords to create something that is actually very emotionally moving. The chord progression that's used for most of the song is a really standard 4-chord pop progression. 1, 5, 6, 4. You've heard it many, many, many times. This is a chord progression that is used a lot because it works. Song is in A major, and the first chord is A major. So it starts off on this very solid footing. Then it goes to the 5 chord, which creates an expectation. Now we have what is called harmonic tension. This chord sounds like it needs to go somewhere else now to find resolution, whereas this one, that is the resolution. That's our home base. That's our home chord where everything feels settled. This is the chord that the song would end on in a perfect world. And then this one comes along, which feels like, okay, now we gotta move somewhere. And the most logical place for this chord to go next is to go back to home. That's called a perfect cadence. 5, 1. But instead, the song goes to a related chord, a substitute, so to speak. F sharp minor. Everything's okay. That is not what I was expecting. I think we can all agree that there's a little bit of a different feeling, or actually a kind of a big difference in feeling between the minor chord and this major chord. So the minor chord itself, even without any context of other chords around it, is a bit more fragile. People describe it as sounding darker, even sad, which is an oversimplification, but it doesn't sound nearly as certain and stable as a major chord. This one is just more insecure. And that line, where are we? It's like, oh, I know where we are. And now I'm not 100% sure. What the hell, right? And there's something she does to this minor chord that's particularly tear-jerking, but we'll get there. So this minor chord is kind of nestled in here, and it's sort of a deception. Like, we were supposed to go home. We went here instead. That's where the D major chord comes in. The D major chord is related to the F sharp minor chord by also having two notes in common with it. And this beautiful major chord is called the 4 chord, and it does also like to point us back home, but in a less direct way than, say, 5 to 1. So it's 4 to 1. It has a more holy sound because this is the same cadence, plagal amen cadence that you hear in church music. Also, can you feel that there's a really nice balance to this? Doop, 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 doop. That's the main chord progression for the verse. But when she sings hide and seek, it changes a little bit. And then for what'd you say, she takes those 4 chords and just rearranges them. So instead of starting on A major, we start on D major, then go to A, then to F sharp, and then to E, and then start over on D. And that one works really well because you still get the same flavors as the original chord progression. It still sounds like the same song. You know, they are the same chords. They're just telling a slightly different story. But this time we start on a chord that's not the home chord. So it's like you're beginning your story away from home and trying to find your way back. So there's tension created here, emotionally and musically. And then there's the resolution, but it doesn't last long, quickly overtaken by that minor chord again. And then we just sink down a little bit to the 5. The 5 is the one chord that wants to go back home. But in this case, it doesn't go home. Once again, our expectations are subverted and we go down further to the 4 chord. I love starting on the 4 chord. All right, well, I spent a lot more time on the chord progression than I intended to, but let's keep moving.
Where are we?
Already, I have to mention, I love this choice of this long, sustained note. And then what's called staccato, basically. It's just this really short, kind of attacked we. There's this beautiful reverb that comes out too, right at that moment, because you can really hear all the space. Right? There's no other instruments here. It's just her and herselves. So, where are we? Beautiful contrast.
What the hell?
What? Okay, so this is the first of many places in the song where Imogen has added more notes to these major and minor chords that I was playing. Whenever you add new notes to a chord, you end up creating tension. We get this feeling of like it's rubbing up against itself. There is literal friction, and you can feel that acoustically. Did you hear it go? Whoa, 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 whoa. It's faster, but that's called acoustic beating. And that's what happens when frequencies that are similar but slightly different are happening at the same time, and you can almost hear them battling with each other. So there's a really interesting resonance that happens with tension. And the particular types of tension she uses are usually minor seconds, major seconds, which are a little further apart but still pretty close, and then something called a ninth, which is basically one of those tensions I just played, but spread out more. The other thing she's gonna do a lot are tone clusters. So that's at least my term for when there's like 3 notes right next to each other, 3 or more notes right next to each other. So like this. The note that she's singing in her melody is the tense note that's being added. It just wouldn't be the same if she didn't do that, if she just sang a note in the chord like, where are we? What hell? Where are we? You hear it, right? I mean, that's just so incredibly beautiful because it creates that friction that we really want to release. And she actually does release it. She goes, what the? This wants to resolve down. So there's all sorts of moments like that. What the hell? When she goes to this chord, we also have this moment of tension. Instead of just playing D major, she removes the major note in the chord, the F sharp, and instead we hear an E higher, like that. Okay, so this is a much more spread out kind of tension, but it's still tension. Beautiful. And it's just kind of unexpected. For those of you that do know some music theory terms, both of the notes I've played so far that were tense were the ninth, and that's going to keep coming back.
Is going on.
Going on. Now, little note about her melody here. So the first time, where are we? That note is in the E major chord. It's the third of the chord, but then the second time, what the hell is going on? This time she goes to the fifth of the chord, so she went higher. And it's like little variations like that that make a big difference. And it's very subconscious. And it's also probably not something she was very conscious of herself. It probably just felt right. But this is giving us a little hint that things are going to start amping up, right? Something is starting to build. And it is.
The dust has only just begun.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I forgot about this. This is called a sixth chord. We've got another note in here that's creating tension. To be honest with you, I don't really usually think about chords like right away as sixth chords and seventh chords and ninth chords. I'm thinking more about the spacing between notes. So all I know is that, like, yeah, this is a major chord, and then this note is rubbing up against this one. Or here, these notes are rubbing up against each other. So that's more how I think about tensions. This interval, all of these tensions are creating that emotional friction that we want released. But there's another thing about this that's worth noting is that that note is in the chord that's coming next. So this is almost like part of her is ahead of the rest of the song. So there's a pull. And then when the chord moves, we get our resolution. But she didn't have to move. She just stayed there. So this is so beautiful. Now this to me sounds like a pattern. See, if you sing it faster, you can really hear it. I love that. Sinking. She goes up when she says sinking.
Sinking.
There's this feeling of like dissociation or detachment there. Sinking. Because you expect it to go down, right? But I think we've all felt that feeling like where our stomach flips over or, you like come out of your body, even though it feels like your stomach's dropping.
Spin me round again.
Spin me round. A few things have changed. So the chords are going to be a little bit different, but also the way she's singing is different, right? Instead of like, it's kind of breathy, really light, fluffy, kind of almost husky. Where are we? Now it's a lot more pure and projected, and she's sustaining the note. So things are way more intense this time. But also the chord. So instead of just a major chord like spin, it's actually spin. Listen to the difference. That's a major chord. And that chord is neither major nor minor. We took out the note that makes the chord major or minor and replaced it with a nearby note that creates tension and ambiguity. So, oh, I love that feeling, don't you? Spin me round again. That same beautiful tension is still there, but this time there's another note. If that chord couldn't get any better, it just did. So now there's this note added on top, and that creates this seventh. And, oh my God.
My eyes.
And then this time, it's so cool, these little details, I love them. There's just so much variation. You know, she's kind of almost never doing the same chord twice. Not never, but she's often changing things up because she has the skill and the ear and the opportunity to make this really nuanced. So instead of doing an A major chord or this type of chord, it's called suspension, she puts them together. That's so absolutely beautiful. All those notes together. I love that so much. My eyes. Add ninths to everything. Just add ninths to everything.
Burning when busy streets,
Busy streets.
a mess with people would stop to hold their heads heavy.
Stop to hold their heads heavy. So again, her lyrics are all about sinking and being heavy. And every time her voice goes up, and this time, oh, it gives me chills. Instead of going sinking, just singing the notes in the chord, feeling, she goes, their heads. So she went higher this time on that high note. And guess what? It's the ninth. Their heads. She probably, again, wasn't thinking about it like that. She's just thinking, this time I'm going higher, right? And she hit that note and it was like, that's the one. That's my guess. That's how most people write music. Sinking just above where we're supposed to go, just above where we were before. It's almost like this is even worse this time.
Their heads heavy. Hide and seek.
Okay, now we get to the part where she sings hide and seek. And now the notes that she had kind of lower in the vocoder are gone. And it's just very tight little clusters higher up. Hide and seek. Hide and... This note comes in, okay? And that creates a really unstable feeling. But it's just for one word or one syllable. Hide and, on and. And it creates this like curiosity, almost this feeling like we're not grounded, like we're floating. Hide and seek. Seventh chord. She's singing the tense note. Oh, tension. That part is actually kind of jazzy.
All the
much tension. In fact, this kind of chord makes it really hard to tell where the bottom of the chord is. So it just has this feeling of like I'm suspended in time and space. But then those ears, oh, so pretty. I don't know if I actually noticed that before. But in that moment, it's really sad sounding. Doesn't that sound wistful? And then, so that tense note is this one. And it just happens on those, on the top of those. And then, everything releases on that one minor chord again. So the only minor chord in the whole song is this F sharp minor chord. And I love that fall. From one note of the chord to the other.
They were here first.
So then, they were. Lots of clusters here, right? It's very breathy. They were. Just all right next to each other. But again, her melody is separated enough that you can actually hear. They were here. When we get to here, it's on the minor chord, but it doesn't feel satisfying at all. Here. A lot of tension in that. On the third verse, she starts to vary her melody a little bit. And this is kind of a hallmark of this song, is just all these little variations, all these subtle little changes that make each repetition so different and give us all these little things to hang on to look forward to.
On walls where pleasure moments hung before the takeover.
So before she went, when birth has just begun. Okay. This time she goes higher. And this is probably the highest note she's sung in the whole song so far. The takeover. So before the highest note was B. Now it's C sharp. So she went higher. The takeover. Then the same. But then there's this dynamic change that happens where she hesitates and there's this big pause before she kind of hits you with the rest of her lyrics.
Keeping insensitivity of this still life.
Still life. Man. Just, oh, so tense. It's like she's filling in the gaps.
Trains and sewing machine catch me around here.
Sewing machines, there's wouldn't catch me around here. And that part is so incredible. Oh, you won't catch me around here. But yeah, that movement. Oh, you won't catch me around here. She's kind of stepping down this ladder, but this ladder of tensions. It's just like, this isn't. Ooh, you. My overhead camera just stopped working, but that's okay. Ooh, you'll find me around here. If you're curious what that is, it's a ninth chord. Remember last time she was like, okay, so now she's got to up the ante, right? Because this just keeps building and she keeps creating these more and more intense variations. So she went from A up to E, and she does this scoop, which is sort of the opposite of the falling, right, that she did before. Right, so, and then she goes up again. And I don't know if I'm even gonna be able to hit this note, but thankfully we have the piano here for that, so. Are you serious? Well, it sounds exquisite when she does it. What is that? That's my squeak range. Oh my God. Now what's she gonna do on the way down? Oh, that is exquisite. And why is that so beautiful? Well, it's the ninth of that chord, so feel that reach. This is the root of the chord. We're just above it. And then she resolves it to a note in the chord. So there's just this temporary moment. Also, I just feel like the ninth nestled inside of a minor chord is especially heavy sounding. It's just. And then my favorite part, well, that might be my favorite, but my second favorite part of the song is They Were Here First, right after this whole, like, almost anticlimax, right? Because it got very quiet. It's almost like her voice started to vanish, you know, like when you listen to, like you're doing a hearing test and you hear that sine wave and it's going higher and higher, and all of a sudden it just kind of ekes out of existence to you, right? The sound is still going, our ears can't perceive it, but it's that feeling of when so high, it just like is gone. So, and everything moves up with her, right? The vocoder, it's not like she's got these big like chords down here while she's going. It's all up there. So everything is just getting smaller and smaller, like she's being squeezed, like the life is getting just squeezed out of her. To
They were here first.
They were. So this ninth, she's singing that ninth. So she's singing the note that needs to resolve. They were, and then she does. What is it about that? I mean, that chord by itself makes me feel a lot of things. It always has, out of context. Like I can just play that chord and feel like I have to cry. This is that beautiful. But in the context, I don't know, there's something, it feels like it's building to that the whole time. Clusters. They were, that feeling of resolution that we wanted. They were, resolution. Don't get it, because she throws in a note right next to the note that we wanted to just hear ringing out. This one, she went also. So there's that clash. That is the clashiest of all clashes. Okay, so they were first. And now, what'd you say?
What you say? That you only meant well, well, 'cause 'cause you did.
Now this section is quite different. Most of these chords are just major and minor chords, so the tension isn't quite as intense. What you say, only meant well. What you say, what did you say? All for the best. Why is that so pretty? All for the best. That last note that she leaves us on, all for the, is tense against this chord of the F sharp minor. But it is in the next chord. So we have that same feeling like we did earlier in the song, where when the chord moves, then her note suddenly makes sense emotionally. So there's our resolution. Tension and resolution. I get this like ghost of the ninth with that last note she sings.
That is what we need, and you decided this.
We need. It's the ninth again. Oh, just what we need. We need. Shouldn't have to do that. We need. It's the ninth again. That ninth, she holds it over. And that doesn't sound like a vocoder. It actually sounds like a real vocal harmony she recorded into the track later. That's tense too. Oh, I love that. It's like the opposite would be resolved, resolved. But she just reversed it, so it's... You feel that.
So what we need, and you decided this. What you say?
Okay, so this is a little detail again. We got what you say. So she throws in this tense note on her little trill. Hey, hey. And that's being harmonized, right? So hey.
Decided this. What you say? What did she say? And some notes keep falling out your mouth.
And that climaxes, and oh, okay, so I'm done for at this point. Then the outro to the song is an interesting kind of contrast between what she's saying and what we're hearing, right? You don't care a bit, you don't care a bit. And yet the delivery is so gentle, so childlike. The chords at this point are a little tense, but they have this overall very major sound. It's probably still the same chord progression, but it's just voiced in a way that's a little bit more gentle and more playful. Now, the way that these harmonies are probably made is that there's like a lot of notes in the vocoder that are just staying on the same note, while others sort of just kind of move up. So she's going down, which sounds almost like a nursery rhyme or something. Meanwhile, the lowest note is going. I think it's the rhythm that really makes it sound more like a nursery rhyme. And then on the top,
And some notes keep falling out your mouth. It's sweet talk news. People are calling.
still taking every opportunity to kind of add these next door notes in to muddy the waters and make things sound more complicated. But again, I think it's the rhythm and the simplicity of the motion of the rest of the lines that makes it sound so childlike. And then
Instead of feeling alive, you don't care a bit, you don't care, you care.
Is kind of a callback to not only the scooping and falling that she was doing before, but even those notes.
You don't care a bit, you don't care a bit.
So, those are just a few things about the song that have always really grabbed me, and it's all to do with the harmony, but also her vocal delivery turns out has more to do with it than I realized. If that seemed really complicated to you and overwhelming, and you're like, I want to do a cover, but what the heck just happened? You don't have to listen to anything I just said. Just remember these 4 chords. So that's really all you need. If you just play those chords and maybe embellish them here or there with some of the notes that you picked out, like this, like the ninths, or maybe you might sometimes want to play that ninth or something cool, or some of the suspensions like that. Great. But you can also do a lot of that just with your voice. Okay, that's all for now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much to my patrons for making videos like this possible. I could not do it without you. Till next time.